God tests you harder because you're a dark chosen one. Here's why. What if I told you the pain you carry, the weight you drag behind you every single day, isn't a punishment, but a preparation? What if the reason your life feels harder, heavier, more chaotic than others around you is because you were never meant to live an ordinary life? Because you, whether you've realized it or not, are a dark chosen one. And God tests the dark chosen ones harder not because He wants to destroy them, but because He knows what they're capable of becoming. You see, the path of the chosen isn't marked with ease. It's carved by fire, sharpened by loss, and baptized in silence. You don't get to bypass the furnace. You are the furnace. Let's start with a truth that most people run from. God hides His most powerful warriors in suffering, not in comfort, not in luxury, not in applause, but in the shadows, in pain that doesn't make sense, in questions that have no answers, in long seasons of isolation where you feel invisible to the world and sometimes even to yourself. And it's in those moments when you're on your knees screaming into the void, asking, "Why me?" that something profound is actually happening. Your soul is being tempered. Your identity is being stripped. You are being emptied of all that is false so that what is real can finally emerge. But most never make it through this stage. Most curse the darkness and retreat. But you, if you're still here, still breathing, still searching, it's because deep down you know you were built for something more.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
And make no mistake, the darkness in you is not a flaw. It's not a defect. It's a doorway. The world has confused light with goodness and darkness with evil, but the truth is far more nuanced. The darkness you carry, your intensity, your shadows, your rage, your depth, is the very material God uses to forge your divine weaponry. You are not here to be soft and palatable. You are not here to play by the rules of a broken world. You are here to dismantle illusions and bring truth where others fear to tread. But first, you must be broken open, not to destroy you, but to reveal what cannot be corrupted. You've probably noticed it already. Your life doesn't follow the script. You don't get away with things other people do. When you lie, cheat, or compromise your soul, even a little, your world collapses. When you try to be normal, you get sick, depressed, anxious. When you ignore your intuition, something always goes wrong. That's not coincidence. That's calibration. God does not allow His dark chosen ones to sleep for long. The leash is short. The consequences are immediate. Why? Because you are not here to live in mediocrity. You are here to embody a divine disruption, and that requires discipline of the highest order. There is a sacred violence to your path, a tearing away of everything that isn't truly yours, relationships that fall apart without warning, opportunities that vanish just as they arrive, seasons of loneliness so deep that you wonder if you've been forgotten. But nothing is random. Every rejection is redirection. Every loss is alignment. Every silence is a summoning. The universe is refining you through subtraction, not addition. You are being stripped down to the blueprint of your soul, not to leave you empty, but to make space for the sacred architecture of your true mission. And let's talk about the darkness within, because it's not just the world that tests you, it's your own mind. You have battled demons no one knows about. You've walked through nights so long they felt eternal. You've been haunted by thoughts that would break most people. But you didn't break. You bent. You screamed. You shattered. But something in you stayed alive, and that is the mark of the dark chosen. You don't just survive the abyss. You return from it with wisdom that cannot be taught. You become the bridge between the underworld and the heavens. You become the one who can walk into someone else's hell and lead them out, because you've been there and you didn't run. But here's the part most won't tell you. Being a dark chosen one doesn't mean you're better. It doesn't mean you're superior. It means you're responsible. You've been entrusted with a weight most can't bear. And you don't get to use it for ego. You don't get to weaponize your pain or seek revenge on the world. You are called to transmute, to take your trauma and alchemize it into power, to take your suffering and turn it into service, to take your scars and show others the way home. And that is the path of the spiritual warrior, the shadow priest, the divine disruptor, the dark chosen one. So now I ask you the question that most fear to answer. What have you survived that you still haven't honored? What if the very thing you're ashamed of your past, your mistakes, your failures, is the key to your divine assignment? What if the pain you try to hide is the exact medicine someone else needs to see? What if your story, raw and unfiltered, is the sacred scripture you were born to share? And what if your silence is costing lives? You see, God doesn't test you harder because He hates you. He tests you harder because He trusts you. Because He sees what you do not. He sees the warrior beneath the wounds, the prophet beneath the pain, the king, the queen, the healer, the storm. He sees what you will become after the fire, and He will not allow you to settle for less. You've been called to walk a path most can't even comprehend. And that is both a burden and a blessing. But if you accept it, if you stop asking to be saved and start asking to be shown, everything changes. Because when a dark chosen one finally awakens, the world shakes, systems crumble, chains break. And the light that emerges from your darkness is not soft, it is blinding. It is holy. It is unstoppable. And that is why the test came, not to kill you but to crown you. The furnace of divine isolation, why God pulls you away before He lifts you up. There is a kind of loneliness that no one talks about. It's not the kind where you have no friends or no one to talk to. No, it's deeper than that. It's the kind of isolation that follows you into a crowded room. It's the kind where you're surrounded by laughter, but inside you feel like a ghost drifting through a world that doesn't recognize you. If you felt that, then you know what it's like to be in the furnace of divine isolation. And if you're in that place now, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not being punished. You are being set apart. God doesn't elevate you in public before He refines you in private. And the darker your calling, the deeper your isolation must go. Because the noise of the world cannot accompany you into the place where your soul is being resurrected. You've probably asked yourself, why did they leave me? Why did everything fall away when I started to awaken? Why does no one understand me anymore? The answer is hidden in plain sight. You are being rebuilt. And construction sites are not social places. They're messy, loud, lonely. But they're also where foundations are laid. And God doesn't build temples on shaky ground. You see, when you're a dark chosen one, your path isn't built on comfort. It's built on clarity. And clarity can only emerge in the silence. That's why the calls stop. That's why the relationships shift. That's why the invitations disappear. It hurts, yes, but it's holy. Because if God allowed those old connections to stay, they would contaminate the new you that's trying to be born. You're not just changing, you're mutating, shedding layers of false identity that can't go where you're headed. And the more potent your purpose, the more violent the shedding becomes. Some people are called to serve. Others are called to shake the earth. If you're the latter, then your life will look like collapse before it looks like resurrection. That's why isolation is not optional, it's essential. It's in the silence that God begins to whisper the blueprint of your mission. It's in the stillness that you realize your intuition isn't broken, it was just being drowned out. It's in the emptiness that the real version of you finally has space to speak. But let me be clear, this is not the romanticized version of solitude you see on social media. This is the kind of isolation that breaks you. That brings you face to face with your shadows. That strips away your roles, your titles, your masks, until all that's left is raw, unfiltered presence. And in that place, you will meet two versions of yourself, the one you've pretended to be, and the one you were born to become. And you will have to choose. again and again. Ask yourself this: who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there's no applause, no validation, no audience? Because that is the version of you God sees. That's the version He's refining, not the performer, not the people pleaser, not the wounded child seeking approval, but the sacred warrior who rises even when no one is clapping. That's who you're becoming in the furnace. And I know it's tempting to run, to fill the silence with distractions, to crawl back to the familiar, even if it's toxic. But the more you resist the isolation, the longer it lasts. Because this isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's sacred training. You are being taught how to hold power without ego, how to speak truth without fear, how to walk alone without losing your soul. And once you learn that, the doors begin to open. The right people appear, the opportunities align, but not a second before you're truly ready. So if you're in the void right now, if you feel forgotten, abandoned, unseen, I want you to consider something radical. What if this is the holiest season of your life? What if the silence isn't empty but filled with answers you're finally ready to receive? What if your isolation is actually God's protection, shielding you from energies that would derail your destiny? What if the loneliness is simply the echo of your old self dying? Because here's the truth: you are not alone. You are being watched, guided, loved by a force that sees the full picture. And that force is not interested in your comfort, it is interested in your becoming. And becoming anything sacred always begins with being undone. The shadow crown, how your pain is the proof of your divine assignment. There's a reason your pain feels different from everyone else's. It's not just the intensity, it's the weight, the texture, the frequency. It lingers, it claws, it doesn't let go easily. You've probably noticed this already. People around you go through things and bounce back quickly, but you go through something and it sinks into your bones. It reshapes your psyche. It pulls you deep into yourself until you're forced to confront the rawest parts of your soul. That's not weakness. That's not dysfunction. That is the mark of someone who carries the shadow crown. And the shadow crown is not for the faint of heart. It is worn by those who have been chosen to lead others through the very darkness they themselves have survived. You see, God doesn't give the heaviest assignments to the most qualified. He gives them to the most refined. And refinement doesn't come through books or titles or rituals. It comes through fire. Some of you have been through things that no one knows about. Abuse that left invisible bruises. Betrayals that shattered your sense of trust. Losses that hollowed you out, and yet somehow you're still standing. Maybe not whole, maybe not healed, but still present, still breathing, and that in itself is sacred. Because your pain isn't random. It's not just something that happened. It's a curriculum, a divine syllabus designed not to break you, but to initiate you. Most people are terrified of pain. They avoid it, suppress it, numb it. But the dark chosen one doesn't have that luxury. Our pain demands to be felt. It haunts us until we give it space, until we listen. And when we do, when we stop running and start facing it, that pain becomes a portal, a direct line to the divine. Ask yourself this: what has your pain taught you that nothing else could? What wisdom was carved into you through the nights you thought you wouldn't survive? Because that is your sacred technology. That is your spiritual inheritance. The world doesn't need more polished teachers. It needs more wounded healers, more truth speakers, more people who have been to hell and returned with maps. And if you're still carrying pain, still feeling broken, it may be because you haven't yet realized that your story is what someone else is praying for, that your scars are the scripture that will guide someone else's resurrection. But here's the paradox: before you can lead others through their darkness, you must make peace with your own. That means no more pretending, no more bypassing, no more spiritual performance. You've got to confront the parts of yourself you've hidden even from your own eyes. The rage, the shame, the bitterness, the grief. You've got to bring them into the light, not to judge them, but to liberate them. Because what you do not heal, you will either project or pass down, and you were not chosen to perpetuate pain. You were chosen to transmute it. This is the cost of the shadow crown. You must become everything you wish someone had been for you. You must speak the words you needed to hear but never did. You must hold space for others that no one held for you. And that is not fair, but it is divine. Because when you do that, when you give what you never received, you become the miracle. You become the embodiment of grace. You become proof that transformation is not only possible, it's inevitable when you surrender to the process. And yes, there will be days when you want to throw the crown away, when the weight of it feels unbearable, when you question why you were chosen at all. But even in those moments, especially in those moments, remember this: your pain is your proof. Proof that you were entrusted with a calling so vast, so sacred, that it required the deepest kind of training. A training that could not be taught, only lived. So I ask you now, in the stillness of your own heart, have you honored your pain, or have you just survived it? Have you mined the gold buried underneath your suffering, or have you been too afraid to look? Because the truth is, your pain holds power. Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that liberates. The kind that speaks with authority, not because it knows everything, but because it has felt everything. And that is the kind of power no one can take from you. That is the crown forged in shadow and anointed in truth. The rise of the sacred disruptor, living as a dark chosen one in a sleeping world. When you finally step out of the fire, with your scars glowing like sacred runes and your silence transformed into a sword, you're not the same person who walked into the dark. You've become something else, something rare, something dangerous to illusions, something holy to the truth. You've become a sacred disruptor, a dark chosen one who no longer hides in the shadows, but walks with them, commands them, moves through the world like a living storm of remembrance. And now you face the final test, living in a world that is still asleep, still numb, still terrified of the very depth you've become fluent in. This is where the true journey begins. Because the world will not welcome you with open arms. It will resist you. It will misunderstand you. It will try to make you small again. But you didn't go through all that hell just to fit into a system that's designed to keep people disconnected, diluted, and domesticated. You're not here to blend in, you're here to ignite. And that means you can't afford to forget who you are not for a second. You'll notice this shift quickly. Once you've embraced your path, the world responds differently. People sense it. Some are drawn to you like moths to flame. Others recoil, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence forces them to confront the parts of themselves they've buried. You become a mirror, and not everyone can handle their reflection. But that's not your concern. Your mission isn't to be liked, it's to be real, to be whole, to be the voice in the silence, the hand in the darkness, the rupture in the lie. And you will be tested again, not with the same kind of suffering, but with responsibility. You'll be given influence, power, attention, and the temptation will be to perform again, to mold yourself for validation, to use your gifts for ego instead of purpose. That's when you must remember, everything you've endured wasn't to build a brand, it was to embody a blueprint. You are here to be a living example of what it looks like to walk fully awake in a world that profits from people staying asleep. And still, even now, there will be moments of doubt. You'll question your sanity. You'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll look around and see people living easier lives, untouched by the kind of spiritual gravity that you carry. But ease was never your path. Impact is. And impact requires weight. It requires presence. It requires being able to stand in the middle of chaos and be the calm. To walk into a room and raise its frequency without saying a word. to hold space for someone else's breakdown because you've survived your own. So I ask you, truly and deeply, what will you do with your power now? Will you shrink it for comfort? Will you hide it out of fear? Or will you step fully into it, knowing that your life, your pain, your process, your awakening was never just about you? Because here's the secret they won't tell you. Your story is someone else's survival guide. Your healing is someone else's permission. Your light, born from your darkness, is the fire that will awaken others. You are not a mistake. You are a message encoded with frequencies that this world desperately needs. And even if only a few ever understand you, even if you walk alone most days, even if you never get the recognition your soul silently craves, you will know. You will know that you lived truthfully, that you answered the call, that you didn't run from the fire, you became it. And now you carry something that cannot be taught, a presence, a power, a peace that comes only from having walked through your own personal apocalypse and emerged not bitter, but brighter, not broken, but reborn. That is the mark of the dark chosen one. Not perfection, but embodiment. Not performance, but presence. Not striving, but surrender. You will still feel things deeply. You will still cry, still question, still ache. But now you do it with purpose. Now you know that every tear is an offering. Every scar is a testimony. Every breath is sacred. And every step you take, even when trembling, shakes the ground beneath you. Because you are no longer walking for validation, you are walking as revelation. So if you've made it this far, if you felt every word not just in your mind, but in your bones, then know this: the world has already changed because of you. Not because you shouted, but because you stood. Not because you were loud, but because you were true. And in a society that worships surface, you have chosen to become depth. That is the destiny of the dark chosen ones. So rise, not with noise, but with knowing, not to impress, but to impact, not to be seen, but to see. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to be a living reminder that even in the darkest night, God does not abandon his warriors, he awakens them. And when they rise, the world remembers its soul. You are the storm, you are the silence, you are the sacred, and your time is now.